Hi, this is Jason from Horrific Nightmares, and it's time for another positive spin. And if you clicked on this video, evidently you're curious. So, around Valentine's Day, we wanted to do something that had a little bit of a romance in it, which could have been any vampire movie, to be honest. But we decided to go with Twilight. Oh, I can hear you now. Oh my god, I can't believe you did this. Well, you know what? If you don't like it, you know where the unsubscribe button is. I really am not going to lose an ounce of sleep over it. I happen to like Twilight. Not so big on the sequels, but I thought the first movie was a pretty darn good film. And I have a lot of nostalgia. So let me get into how I became acquainted with this film, and we'll go from there. Originally, my daughter read the books. She saw the first film in theaters, and I guess the reason why it's really nostalgic is because this was a way of bridging the gap. My daughter was a teenage girl, which is what these books were written for. And like I said, she had the poster on her wall. She saw the films when they came out. She read all the books. And this was a way of kind of bridging the gap between us. A way of finding a little bit more in common, if you will. She knows my love of horror and all the movies that I watch. And this have the whole series has werewolves and vampires in it. So, like I said, it was a kind of a way of bridging the gap. And even though I wasn't as big on the sequels, it was really nice for me to be able to connect with her in watching this series, especially Twilight, which we're going to put a positive spin on. First off, I like the folk music in this, and some people call it emo music. That is probably through the soundtrack. I like that as well. It doesn't bother me. I love the filming style in this. It's a very kind of like drab setting, with it being in Washington. So it's cloudy, it's raining a lot. You get those really drab colors, which bring out, of course, when you find out that Robert Pattinson's a vampire, the pale skin. As I said, this has an awesome atmosphere. A lot of the big shots are gorgeous, as far as like the trees and the open areas, the land and everything. Um, this is just a personal thing, but I thought Bella's truck is really cool. I like old trucks. I always have. It's always been a thing I've enjoyed. It has a very talented young cast, and I believe that this was kind of their way in. I mean, of course, you have Kristen Stewart, who, if I remember correctly, because I know she did Cold Creek Manor, it had to have been right before this. So she I knew of. Of course, Robert Pattinson. I had no idea who he was. I did know, however, who Taylor Lautner was because I had seen him do a. He was into martial arts when he was younger, and I saw him and his family do some kind of a demonstration on television one time. So I kind of knew who he was. Plus, I'd watched Shark Boy and Lava Girl, which that was a tough one for me to get through, but that's just me. I think I was too old for that at the time. And of course, you have Peter Fasinelli, who was on Nurse Jackie. He was great in that, and a lot of other TV shows and movies like Can't Hardly Wait that I always liked. Yeah, the cast is brilliant. I think it was cast very well. I like the dynamic between Bella and her father. Her father, I mean, she's not estranged from her father, but she doesn't have that real close relationship like she did with her mother. And I thought that was really interesting dynamic, and it does play out through the story, at least in the first one. I like the dynamic between Bella and Edward, and I know this gets made fun of a lot, the whole emo thing. I don't really think, I think it gets falsely labeled because, look, it's hard enough to be in high school for just about everyone the way it was. Imagine being that different and being a vampire. I don't know, I just like the dynamic. I think it's very interesting. The conflict between Edward and Bella, of course, he is in love with her, but he can't be near her because it's somebody he should stay away from. I always thought that that was a really interesting conflict between the two. The explanation of the werewolves, of course, I thought that was cool. I like how she narrates the story, almost like in diary form, and the truth in her voice. I always thought that was a really cool thing. The backstory, of course, where Peter Fasinelli actually makes, or Facelli, or whatever his name is, makes Edward a vampire and his wife as well. I always thought that was cool. Um, the Cullen house is really neat. I love all the windows, the setting and everything. The atmosphere and the setting are big positives for me in this one, and the filming style is, as I said before. Um, the baseball scene. That was one thing that I picked out right away when my daughter and I watched it for the first time. I thought that was really cool. Kind of a way of, and I actually had to ask Joe because I never read the books. I had to ask Joe because he read the first one if that scene was actually in the book, and he said yes. I probably asked my daughter that years ago because she would break it down for me what was just like the book and what wasn't. The pacing is fantastic in this movie. As a matter of fact, it being 2 hours and 2 minutes long, I actually didn't look at the time, the running time, until we were like an hour and a half into it, and it kind of blew me away because the pacing was so well done. Look, I know people make fun of this film. I know people make fun of people that watch this film, unless you are a female, because that's what it's supposedly directed towards. So apparently, it's okay to be a fan of Twilight if you're a female. I think that's bullshit, to be honest with you. And I'll be honest, I like the first Twilight film. I like it a lot. I think it's a great standalone film. Joe and I were talking about that as well. I think if they would have left it here, because it does have a change in the second film. And even though I enjoyed watching all these with my daughter, I did notice liking them less and less as they went along. I don't know if they were rushed to capitalize on the success of the first film, but I definitely noticed a step down. So, I mean, all in all, I think this is a fantastic film. I think it's very weirdly stigmatized because, and this is one thing my friend Brad always said, he compares this to The Lost Boys. And I completely agree, just not in the way he meant it. And I'm sure you're going to hear the same thing from Joe. He always compared it to The Lost Boys as, because he doesn't like The Lost Boys. I, however, do, and I know a lot of my fellow horror friends on YouTube do as well. It's just a different time. And I think being unfairly stigmatized, I think you're not looked at as a real horror fan if you like Twilight. Apparently, I'm not a real horror fan. I can live with that. I can probably school you all day long because I've seen more horror movies than most people. So, if that's the case, I don't care. I'm not really worried about it. And like I said, the unsubscribe button is very easy to get to. So, I like this film, and that's my positive spin on Twilight. What do you think? Please remember to keep your comments nice because I'll just get rid of them. I don't care. And don't forget to check out Joe's positive spin And if you like what you see and hear, hit that like button and subscribe. And until next time, peace.